So we're going to talk this afternoon about spirit dynamics, how readings go, things that can get in the way. The afternoon is just the little details that refine a reading, and then where to take it from here, how to take care of ourselves, all kinds of things. So ask questions as we go. I want to start by sharing another valuable point that I learned from one of my mediums in training. I set them up with another parent who had a child on the other side, but I didn't tell them who was on the other side. And I deliberately chose a couple whose daughter is really a strong communicator. She drops in on me all the time with evidence, she wants to help, so I was trying to set the medium up for success. And she didn't censor, but she got a grandmother. And I got to thinking about that, and I thought about the times that I've gone to body, mind, and spirit expos, and I've watched mediums do group demonstrations, and lots of people get grandmothers, and there's nothing wrong with grandmothers, but I realized that I go at readings differently than some people because I've been in the position of wanting beyond hope to hear from my stepdaughter. And I know that people come into reading with certain hopes. I want to hear from my child. I want to hear from my spouse. Some people want to hear from their grandparents. But I realize grandparents are easy because you can look at somebody of a specific age and say, oh, I know they have a grandparent on the edge, so I'll go for the grandparents. And so what I encourage you to do is, I'm going to use my Navy analogy and then I'll soften it a bit. In the Navy, you have what you call high-value targets. If you're going after another person's battle group, you're not going to go for the frigates, the little ships. You're going for the aircraft carrier. That's a high-value target. So we want to put that same principle in a reading. Do you think your sitter wants to hear from a grandparent? Or if they have a child on the other side, who do you think they want to hear from? You may specifically go for what makes you look good and get a good connection, but we want to serve those on the other side and our sitters. So instead of high-value target, which is really how I see them, but I have another term for you, the spirit with the highest healing potential. Let me give it an acronym, HHP, right? But it's the highest healing potential spirit who we want to get. Now, do we control who shows up? No. So we're open to whoever shows up. And that openness is what gives us a great experience. But when our intention is that the greatest good be served, then you are open to whatever happens. And you don't automatically say, oh, let me get the grandparent. Oh, yeah, there's a grandparent here. I so rarely get grandparents, but when I do, it's after I've gotten the others closer in, the more immediate family members. Unless, of course, grandma raised that person and is like a mother to them, or just throughout their life that grandmother or grandfather is so meaningful to them, that's who they want to hear from. Does that make sense to you all? So you set the intention that the greatest good be served, but also who on the spirit world can I get who's going to have the highest healing potential here? And when you're just open, of course, spirit's got this, and your guide, your control, the gatekeeper, is going to bring them in a certain order. But if we're not open to the possibility that there's a child here, or a spouse here, or a beloved brother or sister, we don't see it. It's amazing how the mind shuts things down. But if you know you're going to get a grandparent, it's safe, and there they are, because they're here in the field too. But who are we missing because we think we can't get them? Spirit dynamics, they will come in often in the order, I believe it's arranged ahead of time, but the order that they need to come in. Like look at with Barbara, her dad came in clearly. He was the one I really locked on to before her mom. She wanted to hear from mom because mom just passed, but he had an apology. That's in the pecking order, that usually happens first. Then another thing that happens is if the loved one was really shy, they will often hold back, and the pushier one will come in first. I've been talking to one loved one, maybe a mom, or maybe a dad. We're talking to a dad, and he's going along fine. I say, oh my gosh, your mother just pushed herself right in here. And they'll say, oh, that would be just like my mom. And that's the way they often often the way they were in real life, in their physical form is the way they are in the spirit world as well. When to call off a reading, if you're really going to work as a medium, would be, I'd say, give it about 10 minutes, and you're pulling teeth and you're not getting anything. That 10 minutes can seem like an eternity, and you finally just say, I have to tell you the connection is not here. You might need another medium, or maybe we should try this another day. But don't torture yourself for much more than 10 to 20 minutes. Occasionally, if that's happened to me, just the fact of saying, let's call it off, and all of a sudden the connection is there, because perhaps I was trying too hard. But if you're not getting a good connection regularly, then you should not be doing readings. You should go back to a development circle, working with others who are trying to raise their vibration. Bad readings, bad connections do happen. I shouldn't use the word bad, but just not a clear connection. And it's challenging to get back in the saddle again. But you just remember that spirit won't let you down, and you just do it, and then happily things go well. One of my student mediums had 3 not so great connections in a row. And she reached out to me, what do I do? And I tuned in to her field, and I said, you're trying too hard. You haven't healed enough from your own loss yet. So just go back to ground zero and give it a little time. And she did that, and then the next reading was fine. Yes?
Do you encounter students who just don't get it?
Do I encounter students who just don't get a connection?
Just can't make the connection?
I haven't had feedback from anybody in that regard. I'm sure that probably happens, but it really depends a lot on how much of a calling you feel it is, how committed you are, and how much you want to work with it. I have some people that are just so into it, they're constantly working on it, and they're doing great. And then if it's not your calling, if it's just kind of fun, then play with it and work with each other using that. I've seen a bunch of you signing the list in the back. That's great. Again, I'll just stress how important it is to have an attitude of joy. If you're really uptight and tense, that is going to block it. I was given the image of the little girl who dances on Daddy's feet, and Daddy just guides her around the floor. And my Susan, in spirit, told me that. And so we have this little phrase, sometimes when I'm ready to go, I know that Spirit's got this. I just have to sit back and I'll say, all right, let's dance. And it's like, you guys take it away. I'm just here, I'm just the mouthpiece. So I want you to have just this open, expectant feeling. To me, it is like fishing, or it's like playing bingo. When are they going to call the right letter for me? You just sit back like, here we go. And I don't try. I wait for what shows up. I remember one of the most fun readings was I knew that this woman had a child on the other side, but didn't even know male or female. And I closed my eyes, said, come now, and literally went like this, because this teenage girl in a green tracksuit came running at me. I was like, whoa. And I described that. And the 15-year-old young girl was a cross-country player with a green uniform. We were off and running. Boy, if they were all that clear when they started, it would be just fantastic. But they're not. But I love that everyone is a little different. So it adds that feeling of expectancy and anticipation. All right? So where'd everybody go for lunch that you're so serious? It's like this major shift in the group. Trying to think about that. Where are we going with this? Okay. Yeah. You guys are expecting too much of yourselves instead of playing. That's it. Yes.
Question for you. In your experience, when people pass over through a traumatic accident, or someone was raped and killed, what I've often heard people say is that the actual soul flees the body, and the body is just a shell that endures the awful.
I see this over and over from spirits that come through who passed in a car accident. They show me this. And I know they passed at the scene, and they're telling me my soul was launched out of the body. I didn't suffer. I see it over and over. And if I don't see that and there was a car accident, I know they didn't pass at the scene. That to me is so affirming. And it's right every time. So that shows me that's true. In fact, this is a little bit gory, but I read an article in Reader's Digest the other day about a woman who was in a plane that was hijacked 20 years ago, and the plane landed in some North African country, and they were shooting the Americans one by one and throwing them down the steps of the aircraft. And they came to her and said, "You're next." And the next thing she heard was this loud explosion, and she's floating. Felt no pain, and they threw her down the steps. And next thing you know, she wakes up in the ambulance. So she had a near-death experience, and that to me was so validating. She felt no pain. She just heard an explosion. She didn't feel going down the steps or anything. And so I'm sorry about the graphics, but to me it validates that somehow we may think that people are still suffering. And there are cases, sure, if somebody, I think about these things, okay, a car caught on fire and they're screaming. But I feel the soul detaches. I feel there is an amnesia that goes on there. And I've been shown by the spirits that they don't suffer. Those who are sick for a long time or who have Alzheimer's are already practicing communication on the other side with us here. So those who've been sick for a while, we don't need a long period of adjustment. I have a friend back in our community in Florida. I knew her husband a little. I'd been at a couple dinners with him, but didn't know many details. In fact, he's from Rochester. And we got a call that he had passed. Oh, I was devastated for my friend. Even though we know what we know, you still have to grieve. The physical person is not here. And I wanted to go see her, but another friend said she needs some time. Well, the next morning, I'm driving back from somewhere, and I hear this urge, I have this urge to call her. So hands-free. I call her from the car, and I said, I just wanted to let you know that you're on my mind. And suddenly I just said, I know you probably need your space, but can I come give you a hug? And she said, okay. And so detour to her house. It's 5 minutes away. As I pull into her street, I sense her husband in the seat next to me. Now, it's not 12 hours since he passed, and he had been sick. And I thought, you're here, aren't you? This is really soon. And I really knew he was there when we pulled into the driveway, and he said, this is my house, which to me is something that was validating to me, because why would you say that unless you were surprised to be seeing it from this angle, from the spirit world? And so here's our friend, Bev knows her very well, is expecting me to open the door and say, oh, how you doing? I'm so sorry. And so she opens the door like this, and I go, he's here. He's right here. And I start talking. I said, he's telling me that he had this facial paralysis here, and that's why he had the beard, to hide the paralysis. And she's like, yes. And I said, look, he's right here. And now he's saying that people called you Nursey. I know you were a nurse, but your nickname is Nursey. And she's going, yes. And like, boom, 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 pieces of evidence that I couldn't have known. And all of a sudden he says, she has to write this down, that your husband says you will never remember any of this because you're in a fog. Let's get out paper. And we wrote down 14 different things that he brought through within 12 hours of passing, because the spirit had been practicing communication already on the other side. People with Alzheimer's, same thing. I've brought through many people with Alzheimer's, and they say, clear as a bell now, of course, because the lack of clarity comes from poor wiring in the physical body. Get rid of the physical body, the soul has been fine all along. Okay, yes.
My mother is still very much alive. She's almost 93. She has Alzheimer's. Thank God she still knows who her immediate family is, but has lost many other faculties. She speaks to me at other times.
Oh, how nice.
She assures me that she's going to always be with me.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Yay. Yeah.
Never expected it.
Yay. Same thing as the gentleman I connected with who was in the process of passing. Yes, Lisa.
I work at a nursing home doing massage monthly, and nobody there knew. I didn't tell anybody, but I had went in to work on a woman who really was far gone, as they would say. And the first thing she said to me, and I just lost my dad, and nobody knew. And the first thing she said to me, "Honey, I'm so sorry. And look, you have his eyes."
Oh my gosh, yeah. I'm glad that you're here. Even if you don't go out and become mediums, you're learning about this greater reality. All these stories, I hope, will reinforce for you that this greater reality is real. Your loved ones are as close as your thoughts, and our thoughts are what draw them near. We educate our sitters in a reading. You stop and you say, did you notice they just talked about something going on in your life now? That shows you they're around you now. And if you feel that they're fine, please don't take for granted that the sitter knows that. Oh, by the way, can you tell? They're coming through laughing and joking. They're fine on the other side. We have to educate the sitters. So I want to talk about how I think I mentioned this once already, that the spirits will use what's in your immediate conscious mind. I was going to tell this later, but you guys need a little pick-me-up here. So this is I just love this story. It's the goldfish story. They'll use what's in your immediate mind because it's fresh, it's still in your conscious mind to get through evidence. And I'm aware of this. It can be tricky because you think, am I seeing that or hearing that in my mind because I was just thinking of it? Or is it because they want me to talk about it? This is one of those cases where because we don't know, we say everything. Just say it and don't think it through and you'll be right far more often than you're wrong. Are you willing to be wrong? Please be willing to be wrong because when you're right, it's really healing. So I've given a reading for this woman. I have her son on the other side. He's shown me clearly how he passed, what kind of work he did. We've gone down the list really well. So now we're at the point where he's just talking about random memories and things. And suddenly he showed me an image from a conversation at the dinner table last night. And I said to the woman, your son is showing me this thing we talked about. We had dinner guests over and we were talking about the movie A Fish Called Wanda. Anybody seen it? There's this terrible scene where this guy takes the goldfish out of the tank, puts it in his mouth, and it's the beloved pet of the other actor. And he pretends like he's going to eat it and he's going to swallow it, but the fish tail is sticking out of his mouth going like this, you know? And at the dinner table, one of our guests, a retired Navy admiral, 3 stars, said, oh, I've eaten live goldfish. And we're all going, ooh, you know? So this spirit boy, a young adult, shows me that. He shows me that exact image of this fish tail sticking out of the mouth. And I said, this is really bizarre, but your son wants me to talk about the fact that he ate goldfish. And she said, direct quote, oh yes, I had to keep him supplied. And I went, in goldfish? And she said, yes, he loved them. And I said, do you know how amazing that is? This is evidence like I have never heard before. I said, may I share this on Facebook because I love sharing the wows, right? She says, well, sure. So I finished the reading and I get on Facebook. I say, you won't believe this, but my client showed me that he ate goldfish and the mother said she had to keep him supplied. So it got more comments than most of my posts, like 23 people. Ew, oh, you know, all these great comments. And like the 23rd comment down, one person says, could she have meant the crackers? And I thought, oh my gosh. So I get the woman on the phone, and I said, did you mean goldfish crackers? And she said, of course. But he made the point, didn't he? I mean, goldfish crackers were so well loved by him that she had to keep him supplied to them. So that was a great piece of evidence. But this is what I'm talking about, the spirit world being clever. Because if goldfish crackers were his favorite thing, I never think about them. To create the image of a bag of goldfish crackers in my head, that takes a special vibration. But to pull an image that was just in my head the night before, you can see him on the other side looking at what's in my conscious mind and saying, let's use that one. So there you go. Very, very clever, those spirit people.